Greetings, Mind Crafters, and welcome to another exciting Minecraft episode. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am your hostess with the mostest. I also have little Giovanni right here, our golden retriever. He makes a lot of appearances in our video casts. He's just kind of like the support system here. Has a lot to say, and I'd like to talk today about reversing external negativity. And my inspiration today is the amazing Jay Shetty, and I'm hoping to meet this guy someday. He's got the book out called Think Like a Monk. It's a cool story because he was a monk right after graduating college, skipped his graduation to go to India and become a monk, and like missed that kind of what a lot of people call prime time for the next 3 years. And then one of the monks at the ashram suggested that he'd have do a lot better, better for the world, a lot more out there with all the wisdom he has if he left the ashram monastery anyway, uh, place where monks reside, to go out in the world. And it's just the coolest story ever. But anyway, it seems like just like a dynamite human being. Anyway, so we're going to talk about reversing external negativity because let's just face it, negativity is everywhere. And we good vibes just really don't want to be around that. And so I know for me, because I've been on the Minecraft track, and sort of cultivating this positive lifestyle for a really long time. It seems like I've almost developed a force field to it. So when somebody is being negative, and we're not talking about genuine, best friend calls you and her heart's broken because of a bad breakup or something. That's an entirely different thing. We're talking about the whiners and the complainers and what I would like to call, like verbal secondhand smoke. And it's kind of like if you want to breathe in smoke and destroy your lungs, you go right ahead. But I don't want to breathe you. I just don't want to breathe you. We're talking about the whiners and the complainers and the negative Nellies. And so really, there are a few strategies that Jay talks about that are super helpful. And the first one is to become an objective observer. And it's also similar to, I know talk about it in 12 step programs, is that there's a lot of emphasis on sort of detaching from people with bad behavior or making bad choices. And it doesn't necessarily mean we don't love them anymore. Sometimes people we love go down a bad road, and we are sending them the love and praying, or however you want to say that, devoting mindfulness or something, sending all that their way. But sometimes we need to detach. So this is kind of on a not as deep level as that, I don't think, but it's just detaching from somebody being negative, stepping out of it, and not getting hooked. Remember we talked about shenpa a long time ago, which is a Sanskrit word for that urge we get when we just want to react, Somebody's being negative, trying to stir the soup, and what do we want to do? We want to give it right back to them. So that shenpa surge, sometimes you like it goes from our toes right up to our till we boil over in our heads like a thermometer. That shenpa thing where we just want to give it back to them. Instead of doing that, we can realize that just because they're negative and spewing toxic energy all over the place doesn't mean we need to bite the hook. And that's what this is about. And then Jay quotes the Catholic monk Father Thomas Keating when he says, "There's no commandment that says we have to be upset by the way other people treat us. The reason we are upset is because we have an emotional program that says, if someone is nasty to me, I cannot be happy or feel good about myself." So there you have it. Instead of reacting compulsively and retaliating, we can enjoy our freedom as human beings and refuse to be upset. I love that. This also goes along with one of my other another person in my friends group, even though he has since passed, is Wayne Dyer, one of the best spiritual thinkers ever. He often has said that no one can hurt your feelings. No one can hurt your feelings. And think about it. Why? Because they're your feelings. It's basic logic. And I really like how Jay brings in the non-judgment piece a lot through this book. Honestly, this book is one of the best books I think I've ever read, and that's a statement because I read voraciously, and it's just he writes like he talks, and it's you would think a book called Think Like a Monk would scare a lot of people away because you're like, oh, it just feels like too far away, but it's so relatable. Oh my God, is it so relatable? And he's just got a great writing style that I really love. So I like how he talks about when we step out, we detach, right? And we don't doesn't mean we need to physically walk away. It might mean that, depending on the severity. But if we're talking about your typical water cooler chat where it's rah, 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 it's not, like the Peanuts cartoon, wah 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 wah. When it's that typical kind of stuff, we can smile and nod, or maybe don't even smile and nod, but just, stand there and just we can mentally step out. Plan what you're having for lunch, like who cares? As long as you just don't take it in. But I like how he brings in the non-judgment piece because we can step out, detach, not breathe in the secondhand verbal smoke, right? By realizing that negativity is a trait and not someone's identity. And I know that's one I've been sucked into before because this is a long time ago, but I had a friend who just really struggled with negativity, and like I haven't seen her in a while, but I really, because I think she moved away. But anyway, I really loved her a lot. Like, I loved hanging out with her, but I had to take her in doses. Like, she had some really good traits that just would warm your spirit. And then other times she just would go on these rants, usually when she was feeling not positive about herself, right? Feeling insecure or, the gamut of negative emotions, which is understandable. But she would stay in this place through like, an entire visit or an entire lunch or whatever. And it was hard sometimes. And it really helps me to realize because it's negativity is just a trait and not somebody's identity because there was a whole other side to her that was absolutely wonderful and fabulous. And so I learned while she was still living here near us to just sort of be strategic with the amount of time I spent with her, and that ended up working out really well. And obviously, it's not anything that you announce. You just are kind of smooth and subtle and strategic and just balance it like that. And also, I like how he says that a person's true nature can be obscured by clouds, but like the sun, it is always there. Um, any clouds can overcome any of us. We have to understand this when we deal with people who exude negative energy. I love that because obviously, when people are feeling whole and happy and complete, they are not spewing negative energy, right? So, therefore, there's some kind of brokenness or some kind of upset going on that we all have at times. And that said, we can also choose if they're being snarky and nasty at us because just because they're broken and having difficult times does not give them a pass to stick a pin in our happy bubble either. So it's kind of this, non-judgmental observing, stepping out, stepping away, either physically or just emotionally, and realizing that our feelings belong to us, and not allowing that other person's negative energy to hurt us or disrupt our good energy going on that day. So that's really what it's about. Okay, so the first one was become an objective observer. Okay, realizing that negativity is a trait, not the person's identity. I also like how Jay says something I say a lot, actually. I was just saying it the other day, but I mean, hurt people hurt people. That's how it goes. And so that's what's happening if somebody's going after you usually. So again, it doesn't say give it a pass, but it says to be understanding. So then the next one is back away slowly. So we talked about that. That means backing away physically or just mentally, emotionally, smiling. And then he quotes uh, the famous monk Thich Nhat Hanh, and I've listened to him on YouTube. Boy, is he good. He's a Buddhist monk who apparently has been called the father of mindfulness. I also think of John Kabat-Zinn as pretty up there too. But this monk just oozes of peace. Even looking at him through a screen, I feel peaceful after listening to him. So anyway, Thich Nhat Hanh says, "Letting go gives us freedom, and freedom is the only condition for happiness." I love that. He says, "If in our heart we still cling to anything, anger, anxiety, or possessions, we cannot be free." And then the third thing the other two I've been doing for a very long time, being the objective observer, kind of live my life that way, honestly, the best I can to the best I can, and then backing away slowly. But this third one here is all him, and I really like it. And that's the 25-75 principle. He says, for every negative person in your life, have three uplifting people. He says, I try to surround myself with people who are better than I am in some way, happier, more spiritual. And that made me think of um like like when I ski, because everybody I think who knows me by now knows how much I love to ski, and I definitely ski better when I'm with my kids who ski like the wind, you know? And there was this one time, I mean, just because I usually ski by myself because I only have an hour here and there to go, or 2 hours. But if we go away, I ski with my kids. That makes me better. But there was this once when I was up at the J Peak. I took a run with this person I was working with up there who was um, a former professional freestyler, and she and I took only, I think it was, I should, it's probably more than one run. Let's say it was like 2 or 3 runs. It wasn't very much. We were on a break from work, if I remember right. And we took it, and I'm thinking, wow, that one run with Marcel changed my ski life tremendously because she was so much better than I'm. Like, I'm a very decent skier, but she was, notches and notches above where I was. And wow, I mean, she just taught me how to turn on the crest of the bumps. And to this day, that was probably 10 years ago or more, maybe, or yeah, 10 or 15 years ago. And to this day, so we can surround ourselves with people who are better than us in any way. It improves us. It improves us, spiritually, sports wise, brilliance wise. I think I mentioned, I forget if that was the video cast or the audio cast. Doesn't matter. They end up in the same place anyway. And I joined a mastermind group, and it's just, it was about 20 times better than I ever would have imagined. I didn't really have expectations. I think I just don't do that usually. I think it's growing up in an alcoholic home, I just don't do that. So it's half full for me. But had I imagined anything, it would have been about 20 times more amazing because the brilliance I was surrounded by was absolutely astounding. It was just incredible. And I was with them for the whole weekend. Wonderful, wonderful, highly successful people, each in a different way. So it doesn't have to be, better at this, better than that necessarily, but at least if it's all rhetorical, right? Just however you want to phrase it. Marcel the skier was definitely better than I was, and I grew like a weed skiing with her that day. I just was so much better, and I took it with me. I'm still better in the bumps today because of that 1 hour I spent with her. But anyway, that the equivalent of that was surrounding ourselves by people who are smarter than us, or if you don't want to do the levels things, we don't need to because intelligence looks so different on everybody. Being surrounded by the masterminds with, they all had different businesses. Some of them were, speakers. Some of them were into real estate. Some of there was an attorney and a doctor, this or that or that or this. But, many different from me. But wow, did they push me? They challenged me so much to come up with my own ideas on things. And for that, I am so incredibly grateful. So the point is to for every to get back to Jay, I went off on a little tangent there. For every one negative Nelly, surround yourself with three positive Pete's. So I went off a little tangent, but that's what I love about my mind. I'm a web thinker. So one negative Nelly, three positive Pete's, because you want the positive to outweigh the negative. And then the fourth one, which if Jay's fourth one is allocate time. This is what I've been doing for quite a while. And I mentioned this early in this episode. What he's calling allocating time, I'm calling like a shit giving budget. You know what I mean? I only have so many life minutes. How much time am I gonna give to whatever it is I'm doing? And the older I get, the tighter that budget gets. That's just the truth. So although I also want to say my good friend Father Mike would say, always with honesty and kindness. The idea is not to, be abrupt with somebody. Say, hey, I can't deal with your negativity. See ya. It's just mean, right? Especially since we know that we just said that people who are acting this way are not, feeling like their best selves, right? So rather than that, to just realize, like I did with that friend of mine who used to live here years ago, to just subtly, gently allocate time where you have an exit door, if you don't want to be the passenger in the car where it's unended time, you want to meet somebody there so you can leave, that sort of thing. And just do it like that. And then lastly, the fifth one, Jay labels it as don't be a savior. So basically what he's talking about is just be an active listener. Brene Brown talks about this too when she does her whole thing with empathy versus sympathy. I love that. If you haven't seen that, it's like It's an animated like 3-minute thing. But anyway, to just listen, actively listen. You know, we all need somebody to just hear us, right? It's when we start giving advice that it gets sticky and messy, and especially if they don't take our amazing advice, then we might, get pissed because we wasted our valuable life minutes and now they're not even doing what is clearly the right thing to do, that sort of thing. But just don't be a savior, just listen, just actively listen. And that can just take you so far and be so wonderfully validating for the person who's spewing their negativity. In fact, I love Jay's quote because he says, "And the sayings of the fathers, which apparently is a compilation of teachings and maxims from Jewish rabbinic tradition." I love this. There's the quote. It says, "Don't count the teeth in someone else's mouth." That's awesome. Similarly, right? We don't attempt to fix a problem unless you have the necessary skills. So just listen. We really can't go wrong being active listeners. And just remember, if it's feeling like listening to the person is like you're sucking down turpentine, then you need to find a way to detach, mentally while you're sitting there, or find a way smoothly, politely, and kindly out of the conversation. Okay, so that's really it. Reversing external negativity. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful Northern Vermont. Have a mindful, very positive day.